Today we're going to be diving into the most important topic as it pertains to the future of cryptocurrency, and that is... I'm choking.
Call an ambulance!
How many of you were actually ready to save my life there as I was choking? Well, I can tell you one thing. We're going to be talking about Operation Choke Point. Operation Choke Point is what's going on with crypto. But today, we just got an absolutely wild revelation out of the court proceedings from Grayscale as they try to turn their Grayscale Bitcoin Trust into an ETF. The question is, what do Operation Choke Point and the Grayscale Bitcoin ETF have to do with each other? And the answer is a whole heck of a lot. In fact, today we're going to be explaining how this one court case could completely undo some of the corrupt mafia-like enforcement that's been going on against the crypto industry since the start of the year. So first of all, what is this Operation Choke Point? Let's lay this out before we explain what's going on with the court case. Operation Choke Point is effectively an old program that started in the Obama era and was discontinued under Trump. Effectively, the goal was to cut off the banking system from the crypto economy, effectively stopping people from transferring money in and out of crypto exchanges, and forcing banks behind the scenes to stop doing business with crypto clients. Now, while this was largely cloak and dagger type thing back in 2015, it's just come out that this is happening again. The whole situation around freaking out around Operation Choke Point 2.0 started with this guy, Nick Carter, who's an amazing correspondent on the crypto space, and he details effectively how there's been private guidance behind the scenes for banks to effectively stop doing business with crypto customers. Just today, we have news that USDC is no longer going to process ACH payments for Dapper Labs, the creator of Top Shots and CryptoKitties. We also recently heard that Coinbase is no longer going to be processing wires through Silvergate. That leaves them with one remaining bank, which is Signature Bank. Effectively, the amount of banking infrastructure that crypto exchanges and crypto native industry businesses have to access has been reduced significantly. Currently, in practice, what that means is that they're suffocating the access to put money into crypto, but they're still allowing for people to offboard from crypto, meaning you can take your money out of the crypto ecosystem, but most banks won't let you put money into crypto right now. So the net effect of it is to drown the liquidity in the ecosystem, meaning there's less and less money flowing into the ecosystem, which would imply number go down. That's not what we want. But today, we're looking at a potential massive sea change in what could be affecting the overall liquidity in crypto. You see, just today, we began to hear the arguments around Grayscale's lawsuit against the SEC over a Bitcoin ETF. Now, if you don't know what's going on here, essentially the crypto industry has been trying to get an ETF, an exchange-traded fund, created for Bitcoin so people can easily on the stock market or through their brokers, through the traditional investment vehicles, invest into Bitcoin. The Bitcoin ETF has long been seen as the single most important change that would bring massive floods of liquidity into the crypto ecosystem, because a Bitcoin ETF requires that as money comes into the ETF, they actually buy and hold spot Bitcoin. That means that money flowing into this vehicle in the stock market should effectively move the price up. It creates real buying pressure. Now, the only wrinkle here is that that needs to be approved by the SEC. And so far, the SEC has done absolutely everything they can to stand in the way of this happening. And that's because they know for a fact that if money comes into Bitcoin, given the global interconnected web that is cryptocurrency, like sand being dumped into a bucket, it would rapidly spread to the edges and effectively add liquidity to the entire crypto economy. And for that reason, they have put their foot down and stopped any development on this front. As you can see from this clip with Gary Gensler, it's very clear that to this man, there is absolutely no path to a Bitcoin ETF until, in his mind, the crypto exchanges are fully registered and compliant with securities laws, which, as we all know, there's no process for. Listen to this answer that he gives on national television about the Bitcoin ETF.
You even seem to suggest the large industry may or may not survive. One of the pieces of that survival, to some degree, I think, has been this idea that one day there may be something like a Bitcoin ETF or something else. Grayscale, as you know, appealing the SEC's Bitcoin ETF decision, which is effectively to say it can't happen. Is there any path at which you think either that specific ETF or something like it could?
The path, I'm not going to speak about one, but let me generally say, Andrew, the path forward is well trodden. Whether it's large companies that you follow every day, the Apples and other tech companies, or the automobile companies, manufacturing companies, know how to register their offerings. The exchanges like the New York Stock Exchange and NASDAQ and so forth know how to be compliant and come into registration. The big broker dealers and the small, thousands of broker dealers, the mutual funds.
Right.
I dare go on. We have tens of thousands of registrants that properly, in good faith, comply. They register, they make the proper disclosures. It's time for this group to do so. The runway is getting awfully short. And we're here to try to protect the investing public.
If we really break that down, he was asked what would be the path to register. And effectively his answer was everybody knows the path to register. Everybody knows how to register, except for the fact that the crypto industry has been trying to register now for many, many years. But he doesn't actually even say who needs to register, but he seems to imply that it's the crypto exchanges that need to register, even though Coinbase is a publicly traded NASDAQ listed company. It's really hard to understand at a certain point what the requirements are, unless you just acknowledge that they're not trying to provide the requirements because they don't want a Bitcoin ETF to be passed for the reasons we just explained, which is because if Bitcoin increases in price, that's going to be liquidity that makes its way across the crypto economy. If Bitcoin pumps, effectively it diminishes their ability to squish the rest of cryptocurrency. A Bitcoin ETF unleashes the floodgates of money into crypto. And so it comes as an extremely welcome surprise that a judge or actual judges are expressing extreme skepticism of the SEC's argument in their case against a Bitcoin ETF. That's right, Grayscale is suing the SEC, saying that they do not have the right to deny their ETF. And it sure seems at this moment as if the judges really do agree with their arguments. Now, one of the biggest issues here is that the SEC actually approved a Bitcoin derivatives, a Bitcoin futures ETF, meaning you can short and long Bitcoin legally on the CME. So if they were okay with you shorting and longing Bitcoin on the CME, why wouldn't they be okay with you buying and selling the underlying asset through an ETF? The SEC tried to differentiate him, but as Judge Rao asked, it seems to me what the commission really needs to explain is how it understands the relationship between Bitcoin futures and spot price of Bitcoin. It seems to me that one is just essentially a derivative. They move together 99.9% of the time. So where's the gap in the commission's view? Effectively, you approved a derivative product of Bitcoin, so why not just approve the core product? If you believe that there's manipulation over here and these two things move together 99.9% of the time, then why would you approve an ETF over here? And the answer is very simple. The Bitcoin futures ETF is what we call paper Bitcoin. They don't actually have to buy or sell any Bitcoin to run this ETF, meaning you could have a ton of interest on the success or failure of Bitcoin come in through the futures ETF, but it actually won't affect the underlying price. The Bitcoin ETF, however, the spot Bitcoin ETF, which is at issue here, will actually require the constant buying of Bitcoin from the greater decentralized global market. So if the spot Bitcoin ETF goes through, then we might see an explosion of price and money flowing into Bitcoin. You simply cannot argue that one is susceptible to manipulation and the other is not when they move almost identically together nearly 100% of the time. It's like saying the height of my right arm is manipulated but not my left arm. It just doesn't make sense. Unless of course I'm kind of like going like this and like bending over. I don't know, that's a really bad joke. This has led Nick Carter, remember the author here of the Operation Choke Point 2.0 article, to exclaim today, this morning, we're so back. So for a play-by-play here of what just happened this morning, we have James here explaining, here we go. If the judges are as obvious with their line of questioning in this Grayscale case as they were in the last case they just heard, we'll know the way the verdict is going to go with a fairly high degree of confidence. Haha. Don't expect it to be that obvious though. Just for context, there are 3 judges hearing this case and it needs to be a majority of the decision. So we need 2 out of the 3 judges to side with Grayscale for them to win this case against the SEC. Now, one of them, Rao, was expected to be Team Grayscale, effectively because she is Republican, and this lawsuit does tend to follow some party lines, with the regulator obviously being elected by the Democrats and leaning left. So apparently the other 2 judges are Democrats and their support was considered far less likely. However, one of the Democrats, who I will not pronounce their name out of respect, seems to be leaning towards Grayscale as well, based on the line of questioning. Wow, the SEC lawyer seems to keep saying the futures aren't, and I quote, manipulated in the same way. Remember, we're trying to figure out if the futures aren't not manipulated enough for there to be an ETF, then this should be the same for the spot. So effectively they're saying it's not the same way, but they haven't provided the explanation. And effectively this judge is not liking this. We now even have Judge Edwards, the third judge, harping on the same way language, pushing the SEC to explain what she's saying, and Edwards doesn't seem fully satisfied with the answer. So all in all, we're seeing the SEC kind of go buck wild, trying to bite off the arms of the crypto industry. But once we've gotten into the courtrooms, it's clear that the judges are standing by the rule of law. And not only are they not fully convinced that the SEC is on terra firma here, but it seems like they are openly skeptical of what the SEC is proposing. Now, to be clear, this victory might take a few months to play out. And even when it plays out, effectively, the SEC can then re-deny the application for a Bitcoin ETF with different logic. It's not just like they vote and now there's a Bitcoin ETF, but this is very promising to see that the judicial system is effectively where the crypto industry might see its biggest wins. And this has caused some massive volatility here on the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust. As we can see, since the oral arguments began, we've had this massive pump on the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust. Now, just so you understand, Grayscale Bitcoin Trust isn't actually buying directly Bitcoin, and it's currently at a 40% discount to the actual value of the Bitcoin in the trust. Now, if they win this case, they'll be able to convert the trust into an ETF. So each Bitcoin there will be valued at the global trading price. Put simply, if they win this lawsuit, you're buying Bitcoin at a 40% discount by buying into GBTC right now. The market seems to believe that based on these opening statements, that Grayscale actually stands a chance at beating the SEC in court. And it's not just this case that the SEC is getting a shellacking in. We also have the Voyager bankruptcy judge expressing skepticism over the SEC's objection to the Binance deal. You see, Binance is trying to buy out the Voyager bankruptcy case and return over 73% of assets to the current creditors. A 73% recovery on the Voyager digital rug would be considered an astronomical win for the creditors who are down horrendous. The judge seems to like the deal, and the SEC has stepped in to block it. But the judge is not having that. You see, the federal judge overseeing the bankrupt crypto lender Voyager Digital's efforts to sell its assets to Binance US had some harsh words for the US Securities Exchange Commission attorney over the agency's view that there may be violations of federal law. SEC senior trial attorney William Upgrove said on Friday that the SEC staff believed Binance US may be operating an unregistered securities exchange in the US, an assertion to which Binance US objected. On Monday, the US bankruptcy judge, Michael Wiles of the New York State Southern District Bankruptcy Court, asked the SEC trial attorney whether Binance or Voyager could have known about this claim prior to Friday. He also indicated that the SEC objection may not be enough to warrant a delay in approving the deal. Bankruptcy code does not contemplate an endless period of time. Things have to be done. We have creditors who are waiting and who, in the midst of this uncertainty, have no access to property in which they've invested, and in some cases, their life savings. So we have to take some kind of action. We have to do something. The TLDR here is that another judge is looking at the SEC trying to impede, block, and stop effectively the right path being taken for the crypto industry and saying, look, you don't just get to stop everything because there might be some issues. You have to really pay attention to what's going on. Again, the Voyager customers getting their money back would be just another massive win for the crypto retail investing public. So again, as we see Operation Choke Point trying to suffocate the life and liquidity out of the crypto ecosystem, we see yet another equal and opposite force, actually a much stronger force in the form of a Bitcoin ETF. If the ETF is able to be proved, or at least forced through in the courts, this would open up the single biggest onboarding mechanism for new liquidity into cryptocurrency that we've ever seen. Publicly traded companies, insurance, pension funds, literally anyone with access to traditional investing vehicles like the stock market will be able to quickly, securely, and without any headaches of learning how to store your Bitcoin, store your recovery phrase, none of that. It all gets abstracted away as people can just pour money in to a regulated public ETF. This alone could be the catalyst to send Bitcoin to new all-time highs and effectively completely unleash the crypto bulls in the next cycle. There is a lot of work left to be done, and this is the tale of two cities if I've ever seen them. But the success of this Bitcoin ETF could completely overcome the efforts of Operation Choke Point 2.0, and that is a beautiful thing to behold. Understand that we are literally writing history right now, the history and the laws that will govern the freedoms of internet money, of business and culture and technology of the future, of the internet itself are being written right now. And although some parts are quite scary, it's also really exciting to see how we are all part of shaping the process. As always, if you enjoyed this, you know what to do. Smash that like button and subscribe with the bell notification set to all. Make sure to watch this video. It's just as good, probably even better. You're gonna love it, and I'll see you very soon on the next episode.